So in another installment of the Study Abroad Scholarship Series, I'm excited to talk to you about the Gilman. In particular, I did want to point out before we sort of dive deeper that this particular scholarship is for American students only, and it's specifically for American undergraduate students. So if you are watching from somewhere else, it may not be as pertinent to you. I will link above the series that I've been doing because there are some scholarships in there that will be pertinent to international students, but this particular scholarship only serves American students. So with the Gilman, one of the things that I like about it, first of all, is that it has not been around a long time. So with a lot of the other scholarships that I talk about, like the Rhodes Scholarship, for example, it's been around for years and years and decades. This particular scholarship, this may be when a lot of you were born. I know that there's a lot of students out there who are obviously only 18, 19, 20. And so this particular scholarship was created back in 2001. So not really that long ago. And so there's a smaller group of people that have actually gotten to use this scholarship compared to a lot of the other scholarships. So the scholarship was named after Benjamin A. Gilman, who was a well-respected Republican House of Representatives member who he had been in Congress for so long. He was a huge champion of education, worked across the aisle with so many different presidents on lots of education initiatives and lots of other things. He passed away in 2016, but I am going to put a quote on the screen right now that he talked about study abroad specifically and how important it was. So I'm going to put that on the screen now just so that you can see it. But he was someone who felt very strongly about being able to give opportunities to a lot of students within our country who may not have the opportunity to do things like study abroad or go off and do internships. So he worked a lot both on the federal level as a member of House of the Representatives, and he also too did a lot at the state level as well and in his local community to champion education with a lot of other initiatives as well. So to go through and look at starting with what the scholarship focuses on, I've already talked about the fact that it is for undergraduate students only. So with some of these scholarships that I've talked about in this series, it is for graduate students and for people who are doing law school, medical school. It could be for students who are international. With this particular one, as I said, it was developed in 2001, and it focuses on undergraduate students who are, number one, in good standing. So you have to already be in undergrad. So maybe you are going into your sophomore year, maybe you're going to do junior year, but you're in good standing. And one of the things that is the hallmark of this particular scholarship, as I mentioned, is that with Representative Gilman, he was someone who he really wanted to be able to focus on students who would not have the opportunity to be able to study abroad otherwise without some financial help. And I know in a lot of ways that can be a little bit controversial because you're like, oh, like, you're just giving this to them. But it really is about being able to focus on students who have a lot of promise. So it's not just kids who are down on their luck otherwise. These are students who are really, really talented, but they may come from families who cannot afford to be able to give them other opportunities like study abroad. So if you look on your screen right now, I am going to put a list of the primary people that this particular scholarship targets. So as I mentioned before, with Representative Gilman and everything that he kind of did, he really was focused on being able to help give opportunities to students who might otherwise be left out of different situations. So left out of study abroad, left out of internships abroad, things like that, who of course there may be outliers, but there's a lot of people within these groups that may not have access. And again, these are students who are doing very well in school, but just need an extra hand on things to be able to give that extra boost. So you have ethnic minorities. That is probably not a surprise to a lot of people. There are a lot of opportunities within our country that help to boost different minority groups, particularly in education, so that they may be able to get an extra opportunity that maybe they were not exposed to if they were coming from a certain high school, or if they were going to a certain college that they may not even hear about the information. First generation students. So this is one that I think in a lot of ways people don't always think about. People in our country always think about ethnic minorities, but first generation students are technically their own minority. There are a lot of students out there from all different racial backgrounds, political backgrounds, who just happen to be the first person in their family who has gone to college. So in that way, they don't necessarily have the same opportunities as, let's say, someone like me who comes from, generations of people who went to college and went to do all this stuff. Whereas a first generation person, they may just have their only interaction with college maybe talking to their advisor because they don't have anyone else in their family who has actually done these different things. And so study abroad may not be even something that is on their radar or something that they can even conceive. So they are definitely a group that is focused on for this particular scholarship. You also have students with disabilities. This is something that I will definitely be diving into a bit more on my channel. Hopefully later on this year, I want to do more topics around this because I get questions about this all the time for students who have different disabilities. So this could be physical disabilities. This could be someone suffering from something that is more unseen. So it could be something more mental. This also could just be something if you have a learning disability. And there are questions around what does study abroad look like for those students? Because as we know, in our particular country, in America, there have been so many different initiatives put forward to support people with disabilities. So even if you think about it from most of our school buildings and most of our buildings in general, there are ramps for wheelchairs, and there are ways to support people who have dyslexia. There are ways to support people for mental health. We need to work on that more, but there's all these different things. In a lot of countries, even in the Western world, there may not be a lot of that to support people. There's not been as much focus on that, on accessibility in that particular way. We talk about accessibility a lot financially, but not as much for people with disabilities. And so this is something that a lot of students have questions on. And luckily, this particular scholarship focuses on helping students who may have certain disabilities be able to study abroad. So I think that's something that is fantastic. And it's something that we definitely need to talk about more because people with, sort of the disabilities that we sort of think about and like, oh, that's sad. Like we need to have more of those conversations because those people are just as capable of being to do great things as well. Students from HBCU. So again, that sort of falls into ethnic minority territory, but there are not just Black students anymore who go to HBCUs. There are so many different students. And a lot of those students who go to HBCUs are also falling under the same category. They may not just be a minority, they may also be first generation, or they may be someone who cannot afford to do study abroad as well. Community college students. So we often overlook community college students as well in this country, unfortunately. But they are some of the brightest students. They may have just decided to start at that particular level, and this gives them an opportunity to be able to study abroad. A lot of community colleges as well don't always have these sort of inroads into study abroad the way that, let's say, our four-year universities or colleges do. So they may not even have a study abroad office. They may not even know how to go about doing that. So this particular scholarship helps to target them as well. And then students from states where there is less study abroad. So there are a lot of states out there that have tons of students that study abroad. So kind of the ones that you would think of, California, New York, Texas, Georgia, Florida, Tennessee, Michigan. But there's a lot of states where maybe you just have one or two universities, and even places like Alaska, which, it's a pretty huge place, but there's not as many students who study abroad all the time for a lot of different reasons. And so this particular scholarship targets people as well in those particular states. Last but not least are fantastic veterans out there. If you are a veteran watching this and you are in school thinking about studying abroad, thank you so much for your service. It means so much to me personally, and there are a lot of people out there who are still rooting for you no matter what you hear on social media and in the media. We still love you out there. And for our veterans specifically, we always want to think of ways to give back. And with this particular scholarship, this was something that Representative Gilman definitely wanted to do, was to be able to include our veterans in this, because of course you've gone and you fought for your country, but now you're trying to transition into something completely different, and you may not be in a situation where you can financially be able to support the opportunity to study abroad, and we definitely want you to do that. So naturally, I know that your next question is going to be, well, what is a scholarship? How much would I be eligible for? What do I get? So the Gilman Scholarship offers study abroad students that fall under the categories that we've talked about up to, and I want to put an emphasis on this, up to $5,000 US to be able to support their needs for study abroad. Now, there is an opportunity to get an extra $3,000 if you are going to be studying what they call critical needs languages. So on your screen, you will see that I've just put a list here of some of the ones. I've not done the full list, but if you click into the description, you can go directly to the website that tells you more about this. So these include Arabic, Korean, Russian, Punjabi. There's so many different languages. And for students who are going to be studying this during their study abroad, because these are considered critical need languages, these are not necessarily the most popular ones that people always choose, and a lot of times they're just really hard to learn, which is why a lot of people don't choose them, that there is an opportunity to get an additional $3,000. So essentially, with Gilman, you can get up to 8,000 and you fall under different categories. And we're going to talk about how some of this is particularly ranked. So you could get maybe just 2,000, you may get 3,000, you may just get 200. Although I will just have to say, I'm going to say this out loud, that if someone gave me a $200 scholarship, I might not accept it just because that seems kind of offensive to me. But again, I'm in a different position in that way. I know that if you are someone who you are just trying to get as much money as possible, that may be helpful for something, but $200, like, we can do better than that. Come on, this is America. So I just hope that there aren't a lot of people out there. And I've done like a lot of research and I haven't found a lot of people who just received $100 or $200 with their Gilman. But if you did do that, I mean, I kind of feel for you. So who is eligible for the scholarship? So I already kind of talked about some of the different groups that it targets, although as I said, you may not fall under one of those groups and you could still be eligible, but there is a huge focus on those particular groups. But the first thing to know is that you have to be a US citizen or a US national. So your citizenship status will be verified. I'll get into that a little bit later, but you have to absolutely be a US natural born citizen or a US national. The next rule is that I've already mentioned this several times, you have to be an undergrad student. So this is not for graduate students, unfortunately. This is not for students who are planning to go to undergrad or students who were undergrads 10 years ago. So you have to be an active undergrad student. You also, too, have to be in good standing. So that is another important point to think about, is that if you are flunking out, then you should not be here. You should be studying somewhere because this is not going to work out for you. You have to be within good standing. I did not find a specific GPA, but you can just kind of keep in mind that if you are someone who is in the 2.5 arena, it's probably not going to work out well for you. If you are 3.0 and above, good standing, that's typically what good standing means for most educational systems within our country and most colleges. If you are under that, you need to do some work, and study abroad is going to be more trouble for you. So work on your grades and then apply for Gilman. So the next thing to know is that you also, too, in order to get this scholarship, and again, this ties back into those different groups that I was talking about because they usually are in that category, you have to be a recipient of a Pell Grant. So a lot of you know the federal Pell Grant, which helps students who come from less fortunate backgrounds be able to get additional money for school. This is something that you have to be a recipient for. It is non-negotiable. It only helps Pell Grant students. So if you are not someone who's receiving a Pell Grant, you would not be eligible for a Gilman scholarship. Again, in this particular situation, and this goes back to the mission and what Representative Gilman really wanted, was to be able to give students who did not always have opportunities, do not always come from families who are more middle class or higher, who can be able to support them. He really wanted to be able to support and champion students, to give them an opportunity who do not always have it. So Pell Grant recipients are absolutely, you have to be a Pell Grant recipient to be able to get a Gilman. Last but not least here, well, there are two other things. So the first thing to point out is that you have to be applying to a credit focused course. So there are a lot of opportunities out there when you are studying abroad to maybe not get credit, maybe you're not doing that. This has to be course credit focused. So if you are going through a more traditional institutionalized faculty-led program, which is what most Gilman students do, so it's coming from your school directly, then there is an opportunity usually to get credit. If you happen to be in a situation where you are doing an independent organized, so you're going through somewhere like AIFS or CIEE, you need to just be careful and understand, and we've talked about this so much, about whether or not you're going to get credit, because in order to be eligible for Gilman, it has to be guaranteed that you are going to get credit for whatever you're doing. To while it may be fun to just go and study abroad and not really earn anything, you want to make sure that you are getting credit. That's the only way you're going to be able to be eligible for this particular scholarship. Last but not least, and this is really important to think about in terms of just our overall national security and what we're trying to do in the world as Americans, is that in order to be able to get the scholarship, you have to be going to study in a country that is considered a level 1 or level 2 in terms of a security risk. So I know, again, a lot of you are young out there, and so you wouldn't have been around for 9/11 and that horrible time within our country. But within that particular time, we created a tier system, and you may or may not know about this, where it's like we basically have different scales. So level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, and level 4 is basically do not travel, do not go there. So it would be places that you would imagine where we've had previous conflict or may not be safe for Americans. And you've probably seen a little bit of this. This particular system was used again during the panorama, and so it was kind of the same thing of, don't travel to this place, it may not be as safe, they may not be doing the different testing and all of this and all of this. And so it's the same kind of idea. And so you have to be traveling to countries that are going to be in a level 1 or level 2 in terms of the safety and overall sort of sustainability. So it'll be mostly Western countries, and then some places that are within the East, and some places within the Middle East. Now, you can also go to approved places that are within level 3. So there are certain places that, even though it is, you can still travel there, there may be certain warnings that you may have to just kind of take. So maybe it could even be something basic where it's like you have to get certain injections, I'll just call them, in order to be able to travel there in terms of your overall physical safety. But it's still pretty safe for Americans to travel there. But you can absolutely not be trying to study abroad someplace that is at a level 4. They will not allow you to do that. Not just because they don't want to give you money to do that, but also because as an American and pretty much as a Westerner, you should not be going to these places. I will not get into a list of where those places are, but I think that you can put 2 and 2 together and probably figure out the different places that Americans should probably not be for our own safety. So just wanted to point that out, that it's going to be important that as you're going through and trying to figure out whatever program that you're going to be applying to, the different programs, that you understand what is required in order to get this actual scholarship. So how do you apply for this scholarship? So with this particular scholarship, I mean, I could say a lot of things right now. Anything that is run by the US government is gonna make you jump through some hoops. So if you're an American student, you already know that. And so this is just another day in America. So to apply for this particular scholarship, it's a multi-step process in the sense that you have a part to play, and then your advisors, both your academic and your financial aid advisors on campus, have a part to play. And I know that this is the part that can be most stressful, because I know my students out there, you are very ambitious, you're going to do your part, but then it's the follow-up of other people. And you've probably already gone through this when you need to get letters of recommendation to actually get into college, but now you have to do this again. You're going to find that throughout life, you're going to always have to do this because adults are irresponsible, and it's just a fact. So the first thing I want you to do, and I always stress this, that even though I am so excited to always be here with you, and I am your study abroad coach, and I love talking to my students out there, that every student that comes through this platform is different. And so what you need to do is, specifically for your school and where you are, please, before you even begin looking up and clicking on, I mean, you can click on the link, but before you even begin your application for Gilman, please talk to your trusted advisor at your school, because again, they are going to be able to, not only do you need to do this because we've talked about this so many times, of understanding where study abroad falls into your overall plan, you need to know that, but you want to be able to get some feedback from them. Number one, have other students at your school gotten a Gilman? Are there people that they can put you in touch with to actually talk through this? There's nothing like being able to talk to people who have actually done it, to see what they know, how they did it, how it worked for them. And advisors, they know all of this stuff. They know their school inside and out. They can tell you right off the bat, yeah, there were 3 students from last year who got that. You should go talk to them. So definitely talk to your advisor, and also start the conversation about, I want to apply for this, just so that they can put it on their radar as well, and that they'll be able to understand, like, okay, yeah, like you would actually be a good fit for that. In reverse, maybe they're like, actually, you would not be a good fit for this because X, Y, and Z. And so you want to have those conversations with them for starters. But to apply, number one, what you're going to do is, this sounds very basic, but this is often overlooked. So you want to make sure that you submit your application by the deadline. We're going to talk about the deadlines in a little bit, but you want to make sure that you submit your application by the deadline. And as I talked about before, you have a deadline, and then your advisor has a deadline as well. Both of your advisors, the academic and the financial aid advisors, they have a separate deadline, which is about a week apart. And so you do your part, and then they need to do their part, and then hopefully everything turns out great. So within the particular application, there are a couple things that are going to be vital for you to do. And those are going to be the essays. And so I know that this is the part that just makes a lot of students cringe. As I always talk about, there are typically 3 different students, and we all have our categories. So there are students who, when they think about things like multiple choice and reading, they're like, yeah, I'm all for it. And then maybe if they have some short answer, they're like, yeah, that's fine. And then with an essay, they're like, forget this, I don't need college anyway. And then you have students who like multiple choice, maybe, maybe not. And then short answer, they're like, sure. And then with the essay, they're like, yeah, I'll just do it, but I'm not going to do my best. And then you have the weirdos like me who are like, multiple choice, no thanks. Short answer, there should have been an essay. And then essays, tell me everything, I'm going to just write everything. And so for students out there who struggle with essays, I just want you to know that, first of all, just breathe, take it in. It's going to be okay out there. It's okay. I know that it can be very stressful, particularly when there's money on the line for a scholarship, but you have what it takes to be able to do this. I am also here to help. If you are interested in learning more about my essay advisement, please go to this link that is here on the screen. I help students all the time with their essays, not just for scholarships, but if they are trying to get into different programs. I love doing that. I am an essay queen over here. That is my jam. I absolutely love essays. But for this particular scholarship, there are 2 different things to kind of know. So you have your statement of purpose. And so with statement of purpose, this is really where you are trying to showcase who you are to the selection committee. You're trying to talk about what this is going to mean for you, how it's going to impact your life if you're able to study abroad and get this scholarship. Also, too, they have different themed essays. As far as I know, the themes change every year, but they will give you sort of what they want. They usually give it in character count. So that's the other thing to note, is that it is character count, not word count, which is even better. So if they are saying 7,000 characters, that is not as overwhelming as 7,000 words, which I know a lot of people be like, I do not need the scholarship that badly. I am out of here. Peace out. So just keep that in mind, that with the theme scholarships, you number one, always want to stay on topic of the theme. So don't be like me and go off topic all the time. You want to make sure that you are being as clear and succinct as possible. And that's why I said I love helping students. If you want to work with me, feel free to book a session and we can work on your essays together for this or for any other scholarship or opportunity you might be applying for. I love doing that. But you want to make sure that you are sticking to whatever the particular topic is for those themed essays. And that is one of the things that they are looking at, because again, with study abroad, it is a huge undertaking. I don't think that a lot of people realize that. I talk about this all the time, that it is not just about being able to travel abroad and to see a new place and meet new people. This is, in a way, a lifestyle. It really is, even if it's for a short period of time, and it's going to call on more skills than you thought that you needed. So you may have to change the way that you get up in the mornings, because maybe you have to be in class on time or the door will not open. Like when I was in England, like definitely at 9 o'clock, if class started at 9, it was closed. We didn't have that sort of grace period of, oh, like teacher's not here, or even the teacher's here, students could just walk in late. We did not have that. There may be a language barrier that you are overcoming. There could be a lot of different things. And so you have to be able to show right from the beginning, when you are looking at applying to something like this, that you can actually take on the undertaking of study abroad. So just take the essays as they come. Definitely read through what they're asking you. For some students out there who, even if you don't struggle with essays, but you're just like, it just overwhelms me to be able to do it. If you are someone who likes to outline, I never like to outline things. I just like to go for it. But for a lot of students, that's how they're able to flush out their ideas to make sure they're being succinct. Make sure that you go through and you outline the essay and then get started with it, because those are going to play a vital role in being selected or rejected from the Gilman Scholarship. So in terms of the actual timeline here, I'm going to put something on your screen. So you will see that, first of all, to point out, which is kind of also unique about this scholarship, is that there are two different deadlines for this scholarship. So it's looking at it in a sense of, that students, particularly for semester students out there who are doing semester programs, people have different semesters, different quarters, however it would be. And so there are two different deadlines. So there is the October, and I want to point out as well that this happens every single year and the deadlines don't really shift. So even if you are watching this in 2025, it's still going to be relevant in terms of the actual timeline. So for the timeline, the deadlines, the first one is in October. And so with that particular round of the Gilman Scholarship, the applications open in August. And so you have between August and October to apply. As I always mention, I've mentioned this in other scholarship videos and just other videos about study abroad, that there is something about students who stress out and they like want to apply on the first day and they're like, I have to get it in. It opened, let's say it opened August 5th. I have to get it in on August 6th. Or I'm going to be left out. That is not true. I feel like that's like that stand up first mentality that people have on the plane. It's like, we're all going to baggage claim, just chill out. I don't know. It could just be that personality. Like, I just don't care. Like, you know what I mean? Like, as long as I get it in before the deadline, like, I'm not really going to be that stressed about it. Because again, you want to take your time to be able to work on these different things that you are doing. So with the scholarships particularly, and even if for whatever reason your transcripts, it takes longer to get, you're not going to have it all within a week, and that's fine. You don't even want to just do it within a week. You want to take your time. So you may want to have that window where you're like, if it's closing, let's say October 25th, then maybe you do want to make sure that you have it in by October 1st, just so you are in the clear, and that gives your advisors plenty of time to do it. But you want to make sure that you are not stressing yourself out and just saying that just because it opens every August that I need to have it in early August. So make sure that you are being careful with yourself and being kind to yourself with that. So just to point out, this particular round of the scholarships, this is for programs that are going to be starting December 1st of whatever the years that you're applying and going through October of the following year. So let's say, for example, you are applying right now. So in this particular video, it is September 2022. And so you have found this video and you want to apply. So that means that your program is going to start either on December 1st or sometime before October 2023. So that is the target for the October closing. That's the group of people that they're looking at. Then there is basically a 1 week later sort of deadline for your advisor to be able to submit their, or your advisors to be able to submit their parts as well. So again, as long as it's on their radar, people are busy, you need to remind them, but they're going to get a notification because you have to include their information on there. So they're going to get their notification, but you want to make sure that you do that follow-up as well, because again, these people are dealing, depending on what size your school is, they're dealing with so many people for different things. And so you want to make sure that you do that follow-up, that diligence of saying, hey, just like a little short, cute email, like, I just sent in my part, and can you make sure that you do your part by this time, blah, blah, blah. And I'm sure that they're going to be responsible and do that, hopefully. So then what you're going to receive is, for this particular round, so if you applied in October, you will receive a notification by email in December of whether or not you were successful. So shockingly enough, it's actually not that much time, which is kind of amazing for the US federal government to be able to give you an answer. But that means, let's say within an 8-week period time. So maybe the deadline is October 1st and you hear back by December 5th. That's not really that long to sort of hear back. Of course, like, you want to know as soon as possible, but you'll be able to hear in time for your particular program. So there is a second deadline as well. So there is an October deadline, and then there is a March deadline. And so for the March deadline, the particular application opens in January. So they basically had the first rotation that closed back in October, and then those people were notified in December. And now there is a new cohort of people who will be notified. So with this particular round, it opens in January and it runs through March. And so once it closes in March, it's sort of the same deal. What you're going to do is you submit it, and then it is looking at people who are going to be starting study abroad or overseas internships either by May 1st of that year all the way through April of the next year. So you can take the same thing. If you are watching this and you find this video and you want to apply for March 2023, you would apply by March 2023, and then it is focused on people who are going to be starting for April 1st of 2023 all the way through to 2024. So it's a long period of time that you sort of have the opportunity to be able to use the scholarship once you get it. So don't feel limited if you know that, okay, I'm not going to be studying abroad right in this minute. You have an opportunity to still apply and get it and use it for your future opportunities for study abroad. So definitely do that. The other thing to point out as well is that all the times that you will see on the website, I have linked everything in the description. Everything is in Pacific Standard Time, so just keep that in mind. I know that ironically, a lot of things that happen with the U.S. federal government are in Eastern Standard Time, just because everything is based in Washington, D.C. for the federal government. But this particular scholarship is based in Pacific Standard Time. So in a lot of ways, that may be good if you are back east somewhere and you're like, hey, I need an extra 3 hours on something. If you're on the deadline, although you will not be applying on the deadline, because my students are better than that. You're not going to be there at 11:59 on the deadline. You're going to be at least a couple of days before. But if you happen to find yourself on the deadline, then you will know that you just have a little bit of extra time that is basically West Coast time to be able to apply. So keep that in mind as well. Last but not least, I did just want to point out that once you have gone through and you have submitted your portion, and then your advisors have submitted their portion, that it does, I mentioned this earlier, but it does go to the department that deals with this. I think it's the State Department or someone over there that deals with this. And one of the things that is important is that this is where they not only look at your application, verify that you are eligible, but also too that in particular, they are going through and clearing you. So they're looking at your citizenship status. They're also probably running a bit of a background check. I don't have proof on that, but of course, I mean, why would they not do that to make sure that you are, again, within good standing? And so that's what sort of happens in the background before you hear back. So it goes over to the State Department, and then that's basically where everything is figured out, and then you hear back about the scholarship. So I hope that this video was useful for you. I know that with the scholarships, as I've been putting them out there, I've gotten a lot of great feedback from people who have just been like, oh my gosh, I hadn't heard about this, or I may have just read about it, but didn't know that much about it. And so I love bringing videos like this to you. It's a little bit different from my other content, but I just want to get as much information out there to you as possible. And especially when it's about free potential money, we don't want to leave any money on the table. We are not about that life. We want to get as much money as possible that we can, especially for study abroad, which can be so expensive. So please definitely like this video if you have not. Also, leave me a comment below. Are you thinking about applying for a Gilman scholarship or any other scholarship out there? What are some of the other ones that you are thinking about applying about? And also too, where are you interested in studying abroad? I always like to hear from my students out there about where they want to study abroad. So definitely leave me a comment below on that. So please like this video. Please subscribe to the channel. I release videos every single Friday and sometimes on Wednesdays and Thursdays as well. Please also share this video with someone in your network who also might be interested in getting a Gilman scholarship and studying abroad very soon. I look forward to seeing you in the next one.